Welcome to the Upside Podcast, powered by Upside Global and hosted by Julian Blinn, founder and CEO of Upside Global. The Upside Podcast is listened to weekly by over 6,000 sports and tech executives from all sports leagues and teams in the United States and around the world. Julian has been developing technologies for professional sports teams for over 10 years and has worked for major tech companies along with sports tech startups. In each episode, Julian interviews global leaders in sports to share knowledge on emerging technology in the sports industry and how these technologies can help improve the performance of individuals and organizations, both on and off the playing field. And now here's your host, Julian Blinn.
So this week we have the honor of interviewing a group of MLS sports performance executives. We're going to talk about the latest trends in the world of sports performance, rehabilitation, team culture, and other topics. So I'm just going to go around the room just to give some introductions. So first we have Jason Hand, the former head of rehab at LAFC. So Jason is also the head of business development in North America at One Base Health. So Jason, welcome back to the show.
Thanks, Julian. It's always great to be here.
It's great to have you back. And then we have Mike Messer, the head of rehabilitation for Nashville SC, an MLS team. So welcome back, Mike, as well.
Thanks, Julian. Good to see everybody.
It's great. Yeah, it's great to have you as well. And then we have Tyler Harris, the director of sports medicine for St. Louis, an MLS team. So welcome to the show, Tyler.
Yeah, appreciate it. Glad to be here.
It's great. It's great to have you on the show as well. And then we have Darcy Norman, the director of performance for the Chicago Fire FC, an MLS team. So welcome back, Darcy, as well.
Thank you very much. Appreciate it.
It's great. It's great, guys. Hey, I'm going to jump right into the question. So the first question I want to ask you today is about team culture and cohesion, right? So first question is, how are the MLS teams evolving their approaches to building strong locker room culture, especially with diverse international roster? And what practice have you seen work best to maintain unity through a long season, especially when things are not going so great, right? So do you guys have any thoughts on that? Anybody?
I mean, I could jump in. Yeah, I mean, the big thing, especially I think the long season is, it just doesn't work to have a goal of winning championships, right? Because only one team out of a group of 30 or however many wins a cup. Okay, maybe you got a three or four trophies you're playing for. Because a lot of times you find yourself in the middle of the table, back of the table, wherever, and you can't use that as a goal because it becomes unattainable just due to the number of points to catch up. So it really starts with having a clear vision of the club from the top down, with clear missions around the various departments, what their whole purpose and point is to be there in supporting that mission. And then, how are you going to choose to go about trying to achieve that mission and vision? So what are your values that you're applying as a group, like an agreed upon standard that everyone is kind of acting and dealing with and can hold each other accountable to? And I think, then it's just really living to those values and the goals that you set up. And I think it's very important to have kind of process-based goals as well as objective ones. So I think a lot of people focus on the objective side of the house, right? Which is whatever, win a championship. But then there's the process based, like if you do these things, that will give you the best chance to win that championship. And so I think having a good cohesive understanding for everybody, both the team behind the team as well as the team, and that it's also the players are there to play, so involving them in the process of setting those goals and standards and objectives and values. Because at the end of the day, they're the ones, that are really the most critically judged upon that.
And thank you, Darcy. Great feedback. So would you also say within your clubs, like the leadership management saying, look, there is no players who are more important in the club, like Real Madrid type culture, or would you say that's the case or no?
No, I think you get two camps. You get the teams that are that the player is always going to be the most important thing, but I don't think it's a sustainable structure just because players come and go due to the nature of the industry. Where the club, it's kind of like that Simon Sinek book, The Infinite Game. You can't make finite decisions for an infinite organization and vice versa. They're two different sets of rules to live by. So for two different, games that you're trying to play. So I think it's important that, the clubs, in my experience at least, that have been sustainably strong have a very strong ethos, within their club to deal with the market change of players coming and going.
And by the way, on that, and I won't tell you who told me this, but there's one club in the MLS where the comment was, they don't have a team culture, it's a star culture. Star comes and goes all the time. Right? So no, that's great feedback. So anybody else have any thoughts on team culture?
I'll add on to what Darcy said. I really truly believe it starts from the top down, management, technical staff, even the sports medicine staff. And I really feel it's having systems in place, because at the end of the day, a team is like a business, right? You need your systems, you need to hold people accountable. And it's easy to say if let's say the players are starting at the beginning of the season, what's the expectation? Show up on time. This is the effort. This is what I want you to do from an activation, recovery, routine. So I think it's easy to say at the beginning of the season, but like Darcy alluded to, there's so many changes that happen throughout the season. So are there systems in place where, let's say there's a transfer window, and then whether it's a star player or not a star player, how fast are they onboarded to the ethos or the culture of the team? And I was with LAFC for 6 years, and we had big names that came in. And what would happen was, in the medical staff, let's say we were over inundated with injuries. We're trying to keep up with that. And then a new player comes in, we're trying to figure out physicals, when they can start training, when they can play their first game. There's all these things that are happening. And then I think LFC has done a better job over the years, but you start to lose track of like the basics.
Mm-hmm.
Like, here's the locker room. This is what's expected. If you get into the hot tub, like, you do this first. Like, there's rules to be followed. And I think the better a team has their systems, they can onboard players whenever they come in, and it has the backing of the upper management. I think that gives you the best chance of success.
Mm-hmm. Yep, that makes sense. Thank you, Jason. Tyler or Mike, any thoughts?
I'll just add a couple more things. I've been in a couple environments now where team leadership, whether it be the front office, the technical staff, has opted to essentially bring in, I guess, what I almost call like a culture coach. So maybe starting with an external provider to come in and, kind of have meetings with the technical staff, meetings with the players, gather ideas, get everyone together talking, trying to, build and establish that culture. I don't know that works in every environment or that it's the right way to do it. It's just something that I've seen some teams start to be a little more open to. And then, one other very small thing that, in line with everything that Darcy and Jason said, one thing that I've seen a bit of a change in this year is just a push to make sure that all of the players very simply understand the culture. And what I mean by that is we do have some international players that English is not their first language, and trying to make sure that they have access to whether it be signage around the facility or, translation in team meetings, the communications to go out to the team, just making sure that it's in their first language so that they actually understand what is trying to be communicated to them across the board.
Yeah, well, I remember talking to, I think it was the Red Sox, and they've got a huge academy in Dominican Republic, and it's just different culture, right? So you really have to adapt based on people's culture, right? So that they can best assimilate within your staff, your club, right? So that's great feedback, Mike. Tyler, any thoughts on team culture?
Yeah, I think talking specifically about what Darcy was mentioning, just having that strong vision and alignment from the top down, just allows you to have a culture that should hopefully outlast, whether it's different players or medical staff, technical staff members that are always going to come and go, and always having a very strong process, like Jason said as well, for the onboarding, so that when a new staff member, arrives and, maybe we're onboarding a new medical staff member, they're able to be, shown in the first week, 2 weeks, what that culture looks like, what are the processes that we adhere to on a day-to-day basis, what are our short-term goals, long-term goals, whether that is objective or more process-based. I think both are important. And so just having everybody aligned and moving in the same direction is something that I think is extremely important and sometimes overlooked a little bit at these clubs, because you get into the monotony of the day-to-day, grind of the season. And so sometimes it does fall by the wayside, but, having people that understand that, the ethos of the club and kind of what it stands for, and having them there to help drive that forward, just really helps overall when you bring in somebody from the outside who maybe doesn't understand the city, doesn't understand the club, as well as people who have been there for a long time.
And Tyler, a quick follow up on that, because obviously I don't work for a team, but I'm sure, you get reminded of the team culture maybe at the beginning of the season, right? When things starts, and then, like, does management remind you, like, sometimes, look, this is not where you are. This is not where we are. This is not the culture we have here, right? I mean, how often do you guys get reminded, especially when things are not going well, right, with the team culture? Does it happen a lot or no?
Yeah, and I think for me, that shouldn't just come from, the management or people in the directors' positions. I rely a lot of times on, whether it's our players or our staff to keep each other accountable and hold us in check when, maybe we're starting to stray from, our goals and our processes that we've agreed upon, to make sure that we all kind of stay on the same page as we go through the season, especially in the difficult times. Whether it's a bad run of form, or you're picking up a couple injuries, and you're coming into what they would say an injury crisis, and you're having to spend a lot of hours together, and your days become pretty condensed, and it just, a lot of that can help. Having people around you that understand it and can hold you accountable just helps keep that culture and the values of the club intact.
No, that's a great point. Anybody else have any thoughts before I jump to the next questions? No? Okay. Next question, it's kind of related to that, but it's about leadership development. So from your perspective, what strategies are being used to develop leadership skills, not just in captain or veterans, but across the roster, so younger players also stepped into leadership roles? I mean, we all have heard of, like, the Spurs, right? They've got the, Hall of Famers, like from, Tim Duncan, Tony Parker, who comes in and really try to teach the younger guys. But then sometimes in some team they have veterans, right? The veterans just stepped in and really try to teach the younger guys who's starting out, what it takes to be a great player in the league. So any thoughts on leadership development? Anybody?
I would say for the younger players, just even though they may not look at themselves as leaders, they are in their own respects, and I feel that the younger players, even just teaching them to lead by example, watching the successful players, the ones that quote unquote do the right things and aren't just getting away with their talent. And I think just there's a lot of honest conversations that happen in the training room, and I feel that especially the younger players, they look up to us as big brothers or father figures in a sense, and I think it's illustrating, yes, football is important, but it's a lot more than football. And just marrying the two worlds together is important for them. So just, I think, watching the vets doing the right things, knowing that they're not going to be the youngster forever, and spearheads in like 1 or 2 years, they're going to be the one that are leading the others. So I think it's just educating them early on that you're just not the young guy on the block, and to start to be an adult sooner than later.
And Jason, do you feel like the rookies, they really watch a lot, the veterans? Does it happen a lot? Do they pay attention to what they're doing? Or?
It depends. Like I'm sure everyone here has has a bunch of different players with different personalities, and yes, I think there's cultural differences, whether you're able to communicate them in whatever language it is. But I think all of us that have been in the training room, we've built certain relationships with certain players, and they were 18, 19 at the time, and then now they're at, let's say they're with the club or they're at a different club and you see them succeeding. And when you've built that relationship, it doesn't matter which club they're at, you're checking in with them.
Yeah.
And there are, not everyone, but there are certain times where they thank you for that experience that they may not have understood at the time, but hopefully as they've gotten older, as they become better players or better leaders, it's helped them be successful in whichever environment they're in.
No, that's a great point. Thank you, Jason. Anybody else? Any thoughts?
I'll touch on what Jason brought up with some of the younger guys real quick, and I'll tie it even a little bit into maybe what I'm more familiar with, the rehab process. I think a lot of times we look to rehab as almost being like a reset, and for the younger guys, it's a great opportunity for them to not just take a step back and observe a little bit more what's going on around them, but to teach them what it takes to be a true professional in the league. And that's helping them to develop good habits, how to take care of themselves. Rehab is an opportunity to come back, not just to where you were before, but to come back better than you were before. And that's across the board. So I think that's one specific area in the team environment that you can see some of the younger guys really start to grow. In a more broader sense, I think that one thing that I'm seeing clubs start to do, it maybe a little more broadly than they did before, is actually have individuals within the organization to try to connect all the properties and build those leaders from one property to the next. So starting with the academy, transitioning into the second team, and then transitioning to the first team. How do we identify those players? How do we, bring out the best qualities in them and really help them grow from level to level? And then more specifically, just within the team environment, one thing that I saw specific to our organization is, the first few years there, we had a relatively more veteran squad, I would say. And so our team leadership was a pretty heavy veteran presence. And, with some of the situations that we handled where it came down to a team vote, say for maybe a training time, you'd have the group of veterans that, most of them have a family. So they're up early with their kids. If they're already up early, they want to get into training early and be done with it so they can go and spend time with their families. And that maybe isn't what the young guys would have chosen to do. So, I think we've seen a little bit of evolution to where when we do have, say, set groups of leaders, we have a little bit more representation across all age groups within the organization, just to make sure that all voices and viewpoints are accounted for.
That's great. Yeah. Anybody else? Tyler or Darcy, any thoughts? Leadership?
I mean, I can just add, one of the things we have is a leadership council. So it's a mix of players, kind of young, old, foreign, domestic, that are a smaller representation of the greater team. So any decision that the team has go to the leadership council. The leadership council then brings it to the coaching staff, so that, we can have more open dialogue around things, because a lot of times it is a player-led environment. At the end of the day, they have to perform, and it's up to us as service providers to give them what they need to make that happen. And then, everyone is responsible to lead themselves. That's kind of coming back to the values piece, and the accountability is that, you have to lead yourself and manage the expectation of the person beside you, above you, below you, however you want to kind of frame up that compass. But those are just a few of the bits that we try and put in play, as well as then provide opportunities, educational opportunities, whether it's bringing in speakers or authors or whatever the case may be, to just give their insights and thoughts around circumstances, or telling stories about examples of things that they've been through.
No, that's great. So I wasn't aware of, your leadership council, but how big is it and how often do you guys get together, I guess?
Yeah, our leadership council is 6 players, so it's voted on by the playing group who they want in the leadership council. But there are some stipulations, like I said, around age and domestic versus foreign and so forth. And then it's voted in. And yeah, and then they can meet. So if there's issues, they go to the leadership council. If there's ever an issue that, needs to be addressed, we can go to the leadership council and, ask support in execution of one thing or another, or feedback on one thing or another. We also do player surveys throughout the year. So on the various, technical, tactical, they have to grade certain things. They have to grade medical services, physical services, nutritional services, mindset services. So yeah, those are all things. And then, we get direct feedback from them,
Yeah.
and then that holds us as a staff accountable. We also have, a mindset team that helps with a lot of that as well, individually with players that, want to speak to somebody or get more input. They have the opportunity to sit with a performance mindset coach and build those skills as well.
That's great. No, that's a great idea. Thank you for sharing that. So Tyler, any thoughts on leadership development as well?
Yeah, similar to, I think a lot of the teams in the league, we have a leadership council that's kind of a mix of, foreign domestic players, different age groups, that kind of help drive, with the team, bigger team decisions and things that have been brought up, in the locker room that they want to bring to, whether it's the technical staff or medical staff or whoever it may be. And then another big thing that, we see, I think we've all seen it, is in the development pathway, players who come from the academy and they were the star player on that team, right? And as they're growing through the pathway, they're not always going to be the top dog on campus anymore. And so how do we still maintain and have that self-confidence, come with them to that next level? So we rely a lot on our mental performance coach, individual sessions, small group sessions to work with our players to help develop that as well as they come through the pathway.
That's great. Hey guys, the next question I want to ask you is, as it relates a little bit to the team culture, right? But how do you guys deal with adversity? And I was talking to Derek Millender, with the head strength coach for the Cavs the other day, and asking the question, and he gave me the anecdote that one time they were not doing well, the Cavs, and things were just not going well. And then he was look, how you guys doing today? And talk to someone, and so why not just grab your favorite latte? Just have a small talk with people, right? Or some other occasions, right? You've seen some other guys start drinking. It sounds like funny, but it happens, right? So how do you guys deal with adversity? I'm talking both from the standpoint of the players and the staff, right? Whether it's losing streak, high pressure games, or off-field distractions, it comes with the territory. So how do you MLS teams build mental resilience and help player bounce back quickly? But how does the staff deal with that too? Anybody has any thoughts?
I mean, I'll go back to the process-based goals that we talked about earlier. I think it's just, are you achieving those goals? Have you hit any obstacles, right, that's keeping you from achieving those process-based goals? And then as a team sitting down, like whether it's with their leadership team or the staff in general or both combined, to sit down. I think that's why it's, super important to have those up front at the beginning of the year, the mission, vision, values, because those are the filters that when the shit hits the fan, the proverbial, that's when you fall on those heavily, is to really reflect on those and, hold each other accountable as to what's happening. And I think it makes the adversity stuff, it's never easy to go through that stuff, but when you have structures and systems, as Jason alluded to earlier, it's much easier to manage through that stuff, because nothing is ever going to be perfect. Like, there's always ups and downs. It's never always up. Like, there's always going to be down bits.
Yeah.
And you just, that's it. And the sun's going to come up the next day and you have a new day to try again and try and do better and apply it. And that's where the values become the kind of the filter for that, and the anchor point to hold everybody accountable to move it forward. So, we've had a season that hasn't been perfect by any stretch, and went through a string of losing a few games, and you got to kind of get everybody together and regroup and refocus, and but it is a team sport. At the end of the day, it takes everybody to get to the finish line. So it's just, how do you do it in an inclusive way in a constructive way where it's just not finger pointing and name calling and you know, off the pan judgments.
And sometimes, you know, if you got a number of injuries, hey, it happens, right? How do you deal with that? You know, it's right. So you might do everything right, and then you go, all of a sudden you got a bunch of injuries. So it derails everything, right?
And it's thinking rationally about those injuries. So is it training stuff and systems and structures that need to be improved? Is it periodization structures that need to be paid closer attention to? Is it lifestyle issues that, you know, people need to pay better attention to? Like, it's not a one size fits all scenario, and it's a very complex thing. I think if any of us had the right answer here, we'd be rich folks. So that's just the nature of it, and also part of why we love being in it, you know, is the challenge.
But at the same time, I think I mentioned in previous podcast, but in the MLS, you kind of have the luxury of, you don't go down if you're, you know, finish at the bottom of the table, right? Unlike the Premier League or Ligue 1 or Calcio, I mean, there's huge, you know, consequences, right? So in the MLS, you don't have that, but still, you know, you got to do well. You got no choice. You got pressure just like any other leagues, right? So,
Yeah, I mean, everyone is an independent consultant, right? Like everyone, they have a contract. It's got a limited window, and you're performing for you, right? And it is about, like, if stuff is going bad, I'm always just about focusing on helping the player get better wherever they're at. And, you know, if that's just being more consistent with something, if it's executing on something, you know, whatever it is, and if I can support that, I'm more than happy to.
that makes sense. Thank you, Darcy. Mike or anybody else? Tyler, anybody?
Yeah, I think, you know, Mike mentioned it earlier about using rehab as kind of a reset sometimes for these athletes. And throughout the season, sometimes you need a reset, whether it's for an individual, whether it's for the whole team. And so, you know, how do you go about that? Do they need to maybe take some time off from football for a night and you know, do a get together with friends, or just get a team outing away from the staff, away from the building, so that they can kind of just let their minds get away from things for a little bit? Or maybe it's something else. Maybe it is more individual or small group, you know, that kind of gets together on a weekly or monthly basis as well. And I think those resets throughout the season can really help you kind of just get back into the groove of what you know, and hopefully get you back on track. Because obviously it's never going to be just perfect results throughout the whole year. It's always going to be ups and downs, and you know, how you deal with the adversity is always one of the biggest things. A little cliche, but that's just how it is in sports, because there's always going to be adversity, whether it's injuries, whether it's results based, you know, whether it's changes in staff and turnover. And so you always have to use those times to take a step back, reflect, always look at yourself first, and then come to hopefully a decision on what can change and how to be better moving forward.
That's a great point, Tyler. And that's just reminding me of a conversation I had with Zach, who worked with Francis Tiafoe, right? The tennis player. The night before I was playing at the US Open, Roger Federer, Zach told me he was crazy nervous, like super nervous. And he said, let's just go out. And then he played Roger, 5th set, he lost. But he ended up telling Zach, look, without, you know, if you didn't go out that night before, I would have probably lost in 3 straight sets. And sometimes you got to clear up your head. That's probably the best thing you got to do. Like you said, just take a step back, do something else, take some time away. But sometimes that's just what you have to do, right? So, Jason or Mike, have any thoughts on that as well?
I think, to build on what everyone else is saying, to get through adversity, it's really a balance between emotion and objectivity. And I feel it's good to be emotional, but not to let it overrun you. You actually use the emotion to drive you. But if you stay in that emotional state too long, it's very hard to be objective. And as all of us know, football or soccer, however you want to call it, is a highly emotional sport. And I think the performance and medical staff does a pretty good job of staying calm and objective throughout the chaos. And that bleeds through not just only to teams, but even us in our normal life as fathers, whoever we are. And with kids, we all deal with adversity, and it's the same thing. It's okay, we're going to get emotional during that time, but like if our kid gets emotional, me as a father is going to be like, okay, get emotional, but are you done? Let's move on. What's the plan? And I feel some of the best players that I've been fortunate to have like a relationship with, they did that quite well. Obviously, like Carlos Vela was one of our first signing for LAFC, and everyone looks at him. He's known for like he doesn't care about football. He doesn't care about soccer. But the reality is, getting to know him, it's that he just knows how to block it off when the time's right, and not to let certain things get to him and just kind of focus on what he needs to do. And I think we can learn from some players as well as they can learn from us, and just to pick and choose, quote unquote, the right characteristics to move forward. So long story short, it's a balance between emotion and objectivity.
Yeah, it's tough to control the emotions, right? When you're losing or it's just not going well. I mean, to reset, it's tough. It's like this one time, I think Tony Parker was talking to Kobe Bryant at a game, and he said, "How do you do it, Kobe?" And he said, "Look, I just go and like this, reset." So Tony tried that, and after that, every time before he would miss shots at the beginning of the game, he was able to kind of reset. It doesn't matter if you keep missing, just keep going, right?
What
So
I think Darcy gave the perfect example. Let's say we're in an injury spell. We can either feel sorry for ourselves, or we can look at the data and we can look at ourselves and see what we need to do better. And then focus on the things that you can control. That's it. And then move on.
I think Darcy is what you have to do every day. Don't focus on the outcome, but just focus on what you have to do now, right? Right. Michael, any thoughts on that particular topic? Adversity.
I mean, I think we've all touched on it at some point, even with the previous questions. I think if you have your North Star, which is your process, which is your identity, and you're able to frame everything around that, it helps you, shrug off the results that occur from that. If you constantly put everything within the framework of, say who the team is, what the team identity is, a lot of those smaller goals that Darcy referenced, and make that what you're working towards, it does make it a lot easier to look past the wins and losses and other adversity issues that come up during the season, because again, you get everyone bought into the culture, and everyone has this confidence and this belief that no matter what happens, that is going to be the thing that makes us successful, and maybe be that one team to win a trophy at the end of the season.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, no, great points, Mike. The next question goes back to technology, right? So there is a new trend, and I've been using this device from Porsetto, which is a vagus nerve simulator. And the vagus nerve simulator, what they do is helps you to reduce anxiety, HRV, blood pressure, and improve sleep over time, right? Sometimes it takes about 2 weeks to see results. But I don't know if you guys have tried these vendors, but there's many other vendors on the market. So what are your thoughts on this technology, and how do you see it being potentially applicable or viable within MLS environments? But first of all, are you familiar with this vagus nerve stimulator? And if you have, how would you see this being used?
I haven't used Posetto directly, but I think it was like 4 or 5 years ago I started to learn about parasympathetics and vagus nerve stimulation, and it was more from a hands-on manual therapy standpoint, stuff that we could do to individuals to, like you said, lower their sympathetic state and relax them in a sense. And I think a few years back I tried Apollo Neuro. It's a vibrating device, and you can either have it on your wrist or your ankle. And I tried it for like a good month, but I always like to try stuff myself because I'm the guinea pig at the end of the day before I have it on a player. And I got mixed results with that, but maybe a year or two after that, I tried Sensate. Essentially, it's like this, it looks like this big medallion, and you wear it around your neck, and it sits right on your sternum, and it vibrates. And then you listen to different music or binaural beats that went along with it. And that seemed to be, at least for me personally, it got me to relax. I use it during meditation and stuff like that. So once I found some improvement, I would actually have it on players. Like I was like, okay, here's my headphones, put this on. Let's say we're just doing a soft tissue session before the game, like something that was just standard throughout the week. And I tried it to see if they would relax, but it was hard in that environment because there's so many players in there. It's hard to kind of get in that state where you're really, really calm. So I probably didn't do a good job as far as having the best control study,
Yeah.
but I believe it has its place. And then if you're thinking about how to use this technology, I would just think maybe even after an away game and you're flying home, like, it's going to be quiet, or unless they're playing cards, right? So
Yeah.
it kind of depends on the environment, but I think that's a good opportunity to see if it can help.
Or maybe if you're dealing with players who have anxiety or sleeping issues and trying to relax. And that's one reason why I got this one, but not 100% convinced, because I'm told the issue with this one is that, yes, it touched the nerve, the vagus nerve, but it's not, the vagus nerve here is not, it's too far away from the skin. So you don't really feel an impact right away. There's some other ones, it's like directly into the ear, and it has a much better impact because it's closer to that nerve, right? So, but yeah, that makes sense. So I don't think anybody would be interested in this, just maybe in some particular use cases when they're dealing with issues, then I think that's viable. Otherwise, it's not something you're going to use every day if you don't have any kind of issues whatsoever, right? So, Jason, thank you. Any thoughts on that? If you have tried it, or if you haven't, then maybe if you have some thoughts.
Yeah, I mean, I haven't tried it. So take what I'm about to say with a grain of salt. I think, when I see some of these things, it's like, why are you having the anxiety in the first place? And if
Yeah.
I need a tool to control the anxiety, maybe I'm lacking fundamental building blocks in dealing with that, right? Like, I think it's our society is really good at creating compensations for compensations, like, if you got a problem, do this, rather than getting to the root of the problem. And I know that's a very basic way when there's a lot of complexity that goes into these conditions. And maybe it's a deeper thing that needs to be addressed. And I don't know, throwing a modality on something is always the right answer. Maybe if it gets you out of the moment, but you still got to get down to the root cause, and what's the root cause of why it came up with. Because I think if we needed these kind of machines to deal with stuff, they probably would have been somewhere on the planet when, evolution took place.
Mhm.
So.
Yeah, that's a good point. Maybe, that person is working too hard. Maybe they're just not, they're dealing with, yeah, like you said, you got to go back to, maybe it's the environment. Maybe it's something they're doing. Maybe, it doesn't have to be, not everything is resolved by technology, right? It could be something else. So.
Right. I always go through the argument, like, if my wife gets a headache and takes Tylenol or Advil, I'm like, maybe try drinking a little more water, or,
Yeah.
whatever the case may be. And again, it's a very simplistic way of looking at it, but just to kind of turn it over, and looking at, the basic of, why are you having these symptoms, and trying to get to the root cause.
That's a great point, Darcy. Anybody else have any thoughts?
Yeah, we've actually seen some pretty good just anecdotal results. We use the Newbie as part of the NewFit kind of neurological system, and it has a setting on there to help promote a parasympathetic state that we use if we see athletes, whether it's with biomarkers or just subjective measures, going into early stages of illness, or just we see their recovery starting to dwindle over the weeks. Maybe they say that they haven't been sleeping well the last couple of nights. We'll get this on them for 15-20 minute session for a couple of days at a time, and have generally seen some really good results on just restoring their sleep capacity fairly quickly, which has really helped aid in their recovery. And so it's something that we've utilized throughout the year. Especially, like Jason said, when it comes to travel in this league, some of it can be pretty brutal. If you're going, multiple time zones, coming back very early in the morning, it usually affects their next night of sleep as well. And so how can we put them in the best state possible to come in ready to train at a high level, match day +2, +3. So it's something that we've seen pretty good results with. And then, also just, anecdotally from what players have said, hyperbaric chamber use, players seem to really love that for just sleep in recovery as well. I'm not sure the research is great on that right now. I don't think I have can't pull any articles that can give you objective measures on that necessarily, but I know that the way the players speak about it and how they feel when they're done, they definitely feel more recovered and feel better throughout the week. And so that's another thing that we utilize on a week-to-week basis.
And Tyler, so you're talking about the new fit, right? The new
Yep.
B, is that the one you're talking about? Okay. I never thought about using it that way, but that's interesting. That's interesting. So anybody else have any thoughts on that particular modality or no? No?
I've heard of it, but don't have any experience with it. But like any technology, you can probably think about some different scenarios where it might be applicable. And as we've talked about on this program before, the evidence isn't always there. Sometimes it comes down to anecdotally whether it works for individuals or not. So from my standpoint, again, I could see maybe some clinical application, but would probably lean on my contemporaries here on their experiences with it.
Yeah, that makes sense. Hey guys, last question I want to ask you today is, obviously there's a lot of talks about, every single day, right? But generative AI, things like OpenAI, Google Gemini, all those different tools, and how it's, I talked to a number of teams already, but they're starting to do pilots and build some tools, right, using those technologies that could impact the club across many different areas, whether it's operations, marketing, player performance, injury reduction, even fan engagement, and customer service. So has your club began implementing some sort of Gen AI strategy using those technologies? And where do you see the biggest opportunities or challenges for MLS teams? Do you think it's still early in that, in this space, and do you think it's going to have an impact over time? Anybody has any thoughts?
I'll start quick here. I think it might have been on the last podcast. I admitted to needing a AI 101 class.
That's right.
And I'm proud to report that for the first time I used ChatGPT in the past month. I was struggling to find. I was basically trying to build out a rehab protocol for a bit of a different injury, and I was really struggling to find any evidence to support what I was trying to do. So I asked ChatGPT to throw something together. I was very specific with my prompt, and I also asked it to give me the resources that it utilized to put it together. And while, maybe it wasn't quite perfect, it at least provided a framework, which I appreciated. So just from a very simple application to rehab, that was one use that I found some benefit from for the first time. So I'm starting to branch out.
And by the way, yesterday, that's a good point. Yesterday I was watching an interview of this guy who's an expert in that field, and he was like, they did a comparison study between the diagnostic from a doctor and a diagnostic from an AI like this. And what they found is that the AI was actually more, precise as far as doing, diagnostic of like rare diseases. It was more accurate. So, I think we're getting to a point where some of those tools are surprisingly pretty good, right? But it doesn't replace like the human intelligence and your instinct, right? So, but it's getting pretty good, I think, in some areas, not everything. But anybody have any thoughts? Maybe you try ChatGPT and in your in your areas of performance, and you find it useful, or maybe not. Do you have any thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think it's definitely not something that we utilize day to day. But I think looking at the future, it's going to be very interesting to see, especially when it comes down to predictive models. Is there going to be a way, if we can take all of our baseline measures at the beginning of the season, put it into an AI, and it spits out, risk profiles for us, and then that's something that we can monitor throughout the season. That's something that I could find very useful and interesting. And then obviously, our clinical application of specific activations and things like that before training. So I think that there's application and it can be used in an interesting and helpful way. But I think you have to pair that with your clinical expertise, your knowledge of the players themselves, and kind of what you have available at your facility as well. And then also, similar to what you were talking about, I think it's going to be very interesting to see on a diagnostic level where this can go in the future. Are we going to be putting MRI scans into an AI, and they're going to be spitting out timelines for us in the future? Obviously, not quite there yet, and again, it's all going to be very dependent and specific on individual cases, but just things that I think are interesting to think about and could have a very heavy application for us in the near future.
Yeah, no, that's a great point. And, I remember getting a quote from Bill Gates who said, oh, those AI tools are going to replace doctors in the future. Unlikely, but it's getting pretty damn good, right? So, and I was actually, I think I talked to you guys about this. There's one company, I can tell you offline, but they built this injury production model where they looked at previous injuries and they're saying now we will be able to predict real-time injuries in the future, like pretty accurately before it happens, right, during games. So I think we're getting to a point where it's becoming really good. But the other issue is, okay, now you predict an injury, you're going to go to your coach and, is he going to listen to you if you tell him that your best player is about to get hurt? That's the other side of it, right? Which I'm not sure practically it's going to be really possible, right? So anybody have any thoughts on the evolution of Gen AI and where it's going? I mean, it's a hot topic. Everybody's talking about this every single day. But any thoughts?
I mean, we use it quite a bit just in conversations we have in our player wellness group. Like, we're constantly putting stuff in just to see what comes out. Like, it's a great conversational thought partner. As Michael said, like, I'm working through different scenarios and things and putting together, and it just helps brainstorm and create options that I might not have thought about. In the moment, or if I am putting together something and struggling from a creativity perspective, it's great. Or if I have a bunch of information I'm trying to consolidate into a procedural manual or an operations document, it's phenomenal. So those kind of things are great. They don't take away from the fact that you still have to be a critical thinker and look through it and make sure and check it for accuracy and all those bits. And I mean, to your point about the predictive AI, I've had the fortune of working in the data space for different companies. And I think we're a long way from the predicting injuries. Again, it's basically what we just said. It's going to give you more filters to think through, right? But you still got to go get that. And the information is only as good as what the model's only as good as what it has for information. And the predictive AI is going to lack a ton of the context that is happening day to day in these scenarios that are all part of the process. And then I think the other way we're using it is, there's a lot about helping it do stuff, but then we also put our stuff in and ask for it to critically evaluate it. And what are loopholes in our thinking around a certain concept or protocol or procedure? Look at it through a sports scientist's eyes, a therapist's eyes, a physical performance coach's eyes, a coach's eyes, a director's eyes. And it's great. A lot of the stuff that it comes out with, because it might not have been something you considered in an argument. Like, you could even chat to Google or Chat GPT, what your statement of will a coach listen to a predictive model from Chat GPT, and what would be some counterpoints to that. And, it'll spew you out a ton of different things that you should probably consider before you go tell your coach that, Chat GPT told you somebody's at a risk of injury and shouldn't train. So,
go ahead.
So I think it's just, it is I think it's a fun great thought experiment and conversational piece to just, end up getting a group to communicate more about different topics and understand their mental models and ways of thinking about things. And so, yeah, I quite enjoy it. I find it, the more I play with it, the more fun it becomes. But it's also getting used to, using it and just appreciating that at the end of the day, you're the one that has to make the decision and you're responsible for that decision. So you gotta be critically aware of what's coming out and how you're using it.
And so in your day-to-day, great point, Darcy, do you feel like what's the biggest benefit of using those Gen AI tool? Is it productivity? Is it research? I mean, what do you think are the biggest benefits so far?
Yeah, I mean, those are two big ones, productivity and
Yeah.
research for sure. Ideation, and then also like critical evaluation. So if we have, a certain protocol or procedure that we're going to try and follow, we put it in there and say critically evaluate this. Like if we were to
Yeah.
get sued and be put in a court of law and have to be evaluated by our peers, where's the loopholes in our thinking here?
Yeah. But like you said, don't use it for like statistics or anything like that, because
Well, you
like,
could use it for math. Like we also throw a bunch of math stuff in there and see what
yeah,
comes out. You still got to check the math, right? Like you guys
right.
still got to make sure. You can't just say that, oh, it said, this is the right answer. Like you still got to check your work. But yeah, I mean, you can use it to process all kinds of stuff, and it's great from a productivity standpoint. Again, it's just being critical of what's coming out and being thoughtful around it.
Well, I shouldn't say this, but my son's been using it for his math homework, and it works pretty well.
Well, at the end of the day, like that's the thing. Like you could say it's doing your work for you, but you still gotta go through, like nobody's gonna climb the mountain for you, maybe
Yeah.
you can helicopter to the top, but there's gonna be a point where the experience is gained from the journey, not from just arriving at the destination. So you still gotta walk the walk and go down the path to really get the maximum benefit.
So on that point, yes, it can help you do your math problem, whatever you're trying to solve. But when you're gonna have to do the test yourself, and you know how to do it, you're screwed,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Problem. Thank you, Darcy. Anybody else have any thoughts on that particular topic?
I think I don't know. Obviously, I haven't been with LAFC for the last 2 years now, so I don't know how they're using it. But I use it on a daily basis now, like all day, every day, and primarily from like a business standpoint. And I'll just reiterate what Darcy had said. It's a sound bar. It's something potentially objective that you can ask a question that maybe you don't feel comfortable asking someone else. And we always say there's no such thing as a stupid question, but there's certain things that we won't ask maybe our coworkers, because we're like, shouldn't I know that already? So you can always ask ChatGPT, and what it's going to do is going to have a dialogue with you, and it's going to help bring up different questions, different answers, different ways of thinking. And just like you guys said, it's not going to do the job for us, but it's going to broaden our horizons in a sense. It's going to make us critically think a little bit more, and ultimately it's on us to execute it. So from that sense, I don't think it's ever going to replace certain things, because it's not going to execute things for us. But it's just like real life. Things are only as good as our questions. So if we treat AI in that sense and come up with good questions, because what did good programs do? They ask you even better questions, right? You have this dialogue back and forth. So I'm a huge fan of the voice feature on ChatGPT. I'll literally just have a conversation with it. I've done 30-minute conversations in, like, I'm in a sauna and I just have it on my earpiece and I'm just talking to ChatGPT for 30 minutes. And then everything's on there. You can even talk about a athlete case. Like from a medical standpoint, my dad just went through a recent cancer scare. So I uploaded all his before and after data. I talked to it about like what he was feeling, like just putting it all there. And again, it's not going to be the holy grail. It's not going to give me the answer. Maybe it will, but it's on us to look at it and just treat it as another data point, so we can ultimately decide what we're going to do and execute. So, but I think it's an incredible tool, and I feel clubs can utilize it just like Darcy's doing, and then the sky's the limit in the next few years or all the years to come.
I think you're spot on. I think it's as good as what you're asking to look for, right? And then the data needs to be, it's like garbage in, garbage out, right? I mean, if you don't have good data, then it's kind of useless, right? So, but the voice ChatGPT, I never tried that. Definitely want to look into that. Anybody have any thoughts on that before we close? Any final thoughts? No? All right. Hey, guys, I want to thank you guys for your time today. It's really always an interesting conversation. So thank you.
Thanks, Julian.
Thank you, guys.
Thank you.
Thank you for listening. To access past episodes and other research, articles, and analysis of sports technology, please visit our website, theupside.us. Subscribe to the Upside newsletter and receive full access to our sports tech business letter and website. Royalty-free music is provided by ibaudio.com. The Upside podcast provides timely insights and interviews with global leaders in sports technology. Until next time, keep looking to the upside.